help desk software, payment software, email marketing tools, CMS and blogging tools, SEO tools, deal management tracking, pipeline tracking. You don't need more tools to get more out of your business. You just need HubSpot. Their all-on-one customer platform is a dream come true for every member of your team, with best-in-class campaigns and workflows to generate more leads for marketing, category-leading pipeline management to help sales close more deals, powerful AI chatbots, and a knowledge base to help service teams scale, and it's built to deliver results and revenue faster to help your business grow. So dump the disconnected tools and the chaos that comes with them. Discover what HubSpot's all-on-one platform can do to streamline your business. Visit HubSpot.com to grow better today. Hey everybody, it's Sunday, and you know what that means. I'm Jon Weigell, and this is the weekend edition of the Hustle Daily Show. AI is taking over many aspects of our lives, including creativity and gaming. AI may be a welcome participant in the evolution of human creativity, but how do we know the platforms we're using aren't training their AI systems off us for other uses? This calls into question the ethics of AI companies in the entertainment and creative industries. Are they using AI to augment our creativity, or are they using it to fit other company needs? Today, we have an expert in the AI and machine learning industry here to answer questions about how gaming and creativity can continue to exist with AI and companies' ethical responsibility to uphold that relationship. She has an AI gaming company of her own called Hidden Door. This is CEO Hilary Mason. Welcome, Hilary. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. First off, I would love to hear a bit about Hidden Door and the company's overall mission.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this. So what we're building at Hidden Door is a place for fans to come and imagine their own story adventures in worlds that they know and love. And we partner with the creators of those worlds. So we license from authors, movie studios, other folks who are really creative world builders, and then bring those onto our platform. And we've built an engine where it's inspired by a tabletop RPG, but you don't have to memorize a lot of books. It's really language-based and not really crunchy. And then it's web-based. So you can play it on any internet-connected device where you get a web browser. And it's a language-based game. So you get to say, like, you make a character and you get to say, like, oh, I want my character to try this. And then you see what happens.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really cool stuff to unpack there. I think Hidden Door being an AI-based gaming company is really fascinating because AI is kind of permeating into every realm of every industry right now, and gaming is kind of at the forefront of that. How would you say like Hidden Door is different from other companies that are focusing on integrating AI into gaming?
I mean, for one thing, we started Hidden Door well over 4 years ago. So in early 2020, it was actually a week before the pandemic. So a day that will live in infamy for us, I think.
Spectacular timing on that one.
Yeah, but it came from, years of work in the technical domain and just realizing that there was this incredible opportunity space to start to imagine new digital experiences that were facilitated by what we're now calling generative AI. But at the time, believe me, like nobody cared about that. Mm-hmm. Like when we were fundraising, everyone was asking me where the NFTs were because everyone was very much into, and I'm not making that up.
Wow.
We ended up putting no NFTs on our job post because it was so ubiquitous at the time. And so when you ask what's different between Hidden Door and other companies in the space, like I'll just tell you, we have a set of principles that are really built around human creativity being what matters. Mm-hmm. And our system is not just one big black box LLM. Some people have tried to be like, oh, you just have like this wood chipper and you like throw a novel in the wood chipper and then it makes more novel. And like, no, that doesn't work. It would never work. And it's not at all what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Our idea is to try to give the fans of the world and the work the ability to, with the least amount of effort, sort of experience what it feels like to have really great fanfic or improv, or like if you have ever played like a tabletop role-playing game, that moment when you're like riffing off your friends and then you roll the dice and the outcome really surprises you and you just feel really like, wow, that was a cool thing we did together that we couldn't have done alone in the context of this world that we're, all excited to pretend we're in.
Right.
And in order to create that experience, we've had to really think about what we're building as first a game. Like, we're not building a writing tool. It's not a novel generator. It is an interactive game where at the beginning of the game, like, nobody knows where it's going to end because it depends a lot on what the players want to do, what the world's rules are, and then, how the dice land.
Yeah, one of the core components of this whole thing is creativity, which is, awesome to hear that human creativity is the driving force behind these games. And I really enjoy the way that they're built like tabletop RPGs, where they kind of ebb and flow as you make decisions and as you move through the games.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned before that you use like licensed stories and materials to be able to create these worlds. How exactly are those stories adapted and formed into games within that system?
Yeah, so what we've built at Hidden Door is a platform that sort of lets you very quickly create what we internally call a world seed, but the label doesn't matter. What it is the representation of what makes that world special. And this is all based on a foundation of essentially conceiving of the stories we want to tell as tropes. And so I like to think about the thing we're building as essentially a fractal combinatorial trope engine. And I'll give you a concrete example because that just sounds like, word salad. And we did a ton of alpha testing with The Wizard of Oz, which is a public domain world and everyone's familiar with it. So we'll use it as our example, The Wizard of Oz, but it's super goth. And I'm really interested in plots that involve, sort of etiquette. Let's say that's our twist on The Wizard of Oz. And then what our system does is it takes all of the tropes of storybook fantasy, all of the tropes of sort of adventure, and sort of says, okay, The Wizard of Oz in its rawest form is sort of plotted into the space of tropes here. And there are these rules that subvert those tropes. So in The Wizard of Oz, magic is wielded by female characters. All animals can talk, though many of them choose not to. Creatures can be made out of like otherwise non-living items. So like you have porcelain plate people, and that's just fine. Like they show up and that's no big deal. And so we essentially mix up all those tropes where we take the player's choices, we take the rules of that world, and then out the other end comes like a trope soup that creates these setups for the players to sort of riff and play with. Oh. And so I feel it's important to say at this point, all of these tropes are generic. So it's things like a bar brawl, which you can imagine a bar brawl in The Wizard of Oz would feel different than a bar brawl in Star Wars, would feel different than like a bar brawl in Pride and Prejudice or Bridgerton or something like that. But it's the same trope. And so what we do is use LLMs or systems like it to take that sort of trope, which we've handwritten in its generic form, and then pull it into the specific moment of story in the particular version of a world a player is playing with their characters and their setup. So yeah, it is sort of like decomposed trope soup. And then we try and figure out what makes each moment of story special and subverts those tropes.
Wow, that is such a wide range of things that are customizable. And that's really cool to be able to kind of get in on that granular level and customize like, oh, we want a bar brawl in this Wizard of Oz episode. That would be great.
We all have these expectations of like, oh, in a bar brawl, there should be some music. There should be somebody who's inebriated. There should be somebody who like maybe makes a found weapon out of an item that's laying around.
Right, like broken glass or something.
Exactly. Right. And so it is really playing with this line around what do you expect? And then what subverts your expectations in a way that's fun. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of fun with that.
That sounds a lot of fun. I wanted to ask about the gaming space just in general, because it seems like what you're doing and what Hidden Door is doing is very, very different than what a lot of the larger studios are doing, like your Sonys, your Microsofts, and all that. Because those studios have gotten a lot of feedback within the past few years that the games they're making are more monotonous or more kind of status quo or kind of echo previous years very exactly. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the future of gaming and how we game is a lot about customization and making these worlds your own?
I think the future of gaming is largely around the kinds of creative, surprising, meaningful experiences that you will never get out of somebody who's just sort of like, churning out content. Mm-hmm. That's my personal opinion. And I am a gamer, and the games I love have always surprised me in a certain way, even as they use like a lot of the mechanics of games that have come before. So then we're talking about, okay, gaming industry in general, everyone's talking about AI. What does it actually mean? Well, we could spend a lot of time talking about, we can break down like what is the AI capability and how are people applying it. But I can just say at a very high level, and this is true whatever industry you're in, like I will reveal my dark past as like a corporate executive who was advising folks in many industries on use of machine learning. Like I had a whole career doing that before this. Like this is always true. Folks look for the places where they are spending money, where you can use some automation to reduce the cost of some process.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, in gaming, a lot of the places people look are in like art asset generation or in writing.
Right.
I think that falls down because the nature of the technology is that it is aspirationally designed to create like fairly median or mediocre output. And when you think about how it works, right, it's like taking all of this underlying text from the internet, distilling down a compressed mathematical relationship between the tokens in that text or the pixel format, right? And we generate something that resembles what's in the underlying data, which means that at its best, it's sort of coming up with the average of like that underlying data set. So it's not able to do something uniquely meaningful and creative in the way a person is. And so now we come back around to like, okay, gaming companies are looking at this tech and they're looking at like, where can I reduce my costs?
Right.
And the tensions around like, let's replace people who write. And there's a nuanced layer in there that we're not really hearing about, which is that, yeah, there actually are some kinds of writing that this works okay for. And there are many kinds of writing that it really, really doesn't. And unfortunately, the kinds of things it works well for are like thoughts that people have had before.
Mhm.
That it's sort of that, what is the median idea around this thing?
Right.
But the stuff it doesn't do well are those really creative, sort of like, what is an experience I want to create for someone? But every industry starts with cost reduction. Once they get through that, they start to think about what's the new exciting thing that can be done now with this tech that could never be done before. And we're starting now to see some examples of that pop up. And that's where I'm really excited. So if you ask me in the short term, my perspective on gaming industry and AI, it's fairly But if we look in the longer term, I think we will start to see some of the opportunity space become explored, mostly by people who are not at the big companies, who are not stuck in those business models. And then we'll find things we can get excited about.
Yeah. And I look forward to that too. I definitely wanted to bring up kind of another side of AI and gaming as well, especially kind of as these companies do use it to generate things and do use it in the games and even creatively use it in that way. There is kind of always this conversation about user security and user sensitivity when it comes to playing something AI related or using AI in their daily lives and the systems being used on their information to like train these AI bots. Do companies have kind of an overarching responsibility in your mind to really uphold that data security?
I personally believe that people put their trust in you when they use your products and you're responsible for that. So yes, I also think that we are in a moment where because of the nature of particularly things like large language models, companies are not always able to fully understand what is going on. I do think people who build products are responsible for the security of the data that they've been entrusted with. And I think that is true of anyone who creates a product or a service and sells it. I think it's complicated in this moment of AI because often what you're seeing is people passing some of that data through to an API run by another company where they may not have any control or knowledge over the security provision. So you also have issues with people retaining data they may not need to retain or storing the data in a way that PII could be tied to something that might be very sensitive. I think this is less of an issue for our particular game platform, but when you look at some of the companionship oriented AI chatbot apps, like people can put some very personal things in there. They can ask questions about medical conditions. Like it can be extremely important to keep that data secure. And there's a lot of unknowns in even how to do that. So I always like to ask the theoretical, like, let's say I'm sitting at a computer, I'm a security engineer working on an AI product. What should I do? And we're unfortunately in one of those moments where some of it's a little bit of a gray area. Like we just don't know and we have to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is kind of the whole issue right now is that everybody's trying to figure it out. And I think as big companies try to kind of increase their AI capabilities and kind of ramp up and find new things, I feel like a lot of the public is left wondering what their information is being used for. Do you see any time in the future where people can know or will be able to know more easily what their information could be used for?
The world I would like to live in is one in which I have some clear control over what data is retained at all, is used for improving a model or training a model. I want to know when something is passed to a third party.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to have the ability to actually delete my account and like actually have my data deleted.
Right.
We're getting there in fits and starts in different pieces of regulation and legislation, different policies, different best practices. There's another issue here, and this is one that has come up in years past, like well before LLMs existed, where if I have a bunch of customer data and I train a model on that data, and let's say it's trying to predict fraud or it's trying to predict like how to price something for that customer, it doesn't even have to be anything particularly sensitive. But the customer then wants me to delete the data. Do I have to then retrain that model? Like these are already questions that we have had for the last 15 years in the machine learning AI space, and there are not clear answers to them.
That is kind of a mind explosion.
Yeah.
Do you have to untrain these AI models, or is that even possible to untrain these models after you've already trained them on this information? So that's, yeah, that is something that is very, very complicated.
Yep.
And going back to Hidden Door, I wanted to ask for you and the company, what's next and what ways do you look forward to using AI in the future? And what ways do you look forward to creating more stories and more customization in the future for gamers?
Yeah, so we're really excited. We're working with a whole bunch of authors right now and seeing their worlds come onto the platform and players start to play in those worlds. We're still in a closed alpha, but we'll be moving into a beta by the end of the year. So really excited for that as well. And mostly excited to see what our players do. Like the best moments for me are the times when somebody moves a story or a world in a direction that I never thought of. I'm like, oh yeah, you can do that. Like, okay.
Right.
Like those are the ones I'm really excited about.
Yeah, there's always this exciting trend or movement in gaming, like ever since the 90s, I feel like, of people trying to break games or people trying to do things that the developers are like, how did you do that? I have no idea. Had no idea. So yeah, it must be really, really cool to see some people do some things that even you as the CEO never imagined would have been possible.
Totally. And yeah, we do have people who try and poke the system and see what they can get out. We always try and give them a little wink and a nod. And yeah, we see you putting that poop emoji in there. Like we're gonna play with that.
That's really fun. And that's another kind of exciting relationship to have with your audience, is to be able to take what they give and be able to respond. You know, a lot of these bigger gaming companies, when you do something or break a game, it's considered bad, or when you kind of discover something that you weren't supposed to, it's bad, or get into the coding.
Yeah.
But it seems like your environment is very much like, that's really cool. Let's kind of like support and one up that and try to do something cool about it.
Yeah, as long as it's not, hate speech or harmful to another player, then absolutely. Right. Like we want you to play with that. And then I think it's worth saying one of the things that's different with this sort of game is that unlike a computer game, which has pretty much a scripted main plot, in Hidden Doors games, like there is no preset ending. And so the players are directing where the story goes, where the world ends up evolving, because as they encounter characters and locations and they burn them down or they build them up, like they stay. Like, so their version of the world is really different than anyone else's version. And it gives a lot of space where they can imagine and subvert and play and like do whatever they like. And it's in their own space. So we're very happy for them to experiment and have fun.
Wow. Well, really cool. Well, thank you, Hilary, so much for joining us today. It was a lot of really interesting information that we discussed. And I wanted to just give you the chance, if you want to direct anybody anywhere, where would you direct them to play some games?
Yes, thank you so much. This has been awesome. And come find us at hiddendoor.co, and you can join our Discord or play Hidden Door on all your favorite social media.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Hilary. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise.
All All right, and that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. Our editor today is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We've got a lot more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go get yourself signed up at thehustle.co/email, and we'll see you tomorrow.